Amazing. Well, good morning, everybody. It's Leah Etling from Running USA, and I'm really excited today to be here with Jennifer Edwards, who is the Executive Director of the Big Sur Marathon Foundation. Jennifer, how are you?
I am great. Really happy to be here. Very excited that that this project we've been working on has kind of garnered so much interest. So I'm really happy to be here and share the story. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you alluded to, you've got a really cool special running involved project that you just finished up. So we're going to talk about that. But it's the first day of August. You've been out in California for about 8 months now. How's it going?
It's going great. It's actually I think I'm at 6 months, right? Because I came out in February. In fact, I was thinking that I'm like, I can't believe it. Half a year has gone by. It has gone by in a blink. I have the Big Sur Marathon under my belt, and now we're working on the Monterey Bay Half Marathon. So, it's certainly been a whirlwind. I was so lucky to move from one beautiful seaside tiny community with lots of culture and support for running and fitness and whatnot. And I moved to the other side of the country, and I'm kind of in the same situation, same type of organization. It's a great nonprofit with tons of history, lots of support, and really welcomed in the community. So we're coming on our 39th year of marathon running. Yeah, so it's been exciting.
That's awesome. Well, I've had the honor of doing your half, and it's such a great race. So I know that'll be fun in November.
Awesome.
Okay, well, let's talk about this most recent, very cool experience. The Big Sur Marathon Foundation partnered with the Monterey County Juvenile Detention Center and produced an event called the Hall Half. So tell us a little bit about this. What was it exactly, and how does it kind of align with the mission for the foundation?
Yeah. So I happen to, people always ask me, well, how did it even start? And I just was in the office the week after the marathon, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and a gentleman who was a probation aide at the Monterey County Juvenile Hall said, "Hey, listen, I just would love some advice. I'd like to put on a half marathon for the youth in our system here." And I said, "Okay." And he said, I just need some advice. I want to make it as official as a race as possible. And like, well, so what are some ideas? What can I do? What about fundraising? And I mean, I thought, well, this is going to be a bigger call. But listening to him and knowing that, what his reasons were, right? So I always like to know people's why. Why do you do something? Like, what drives you? He loves his job. He loves these guys. He wants them to succeed. He wants them to feel good about themselves, to learn, to grow. And he knows how great it feels when you set a goal and you meet your goal. And he said, I want them to feel that. I want them to know that they can achieve hard things, that we can do something official. And he said, I want to make it as real as possible. When I cross my first finish line, he's like, that feeling is like no other. And I was like, all right, well, let's do this. Like, when someone just like lights a fire inside of you and you're all in, right? And I thought, I'm not sure how we're going to do this, but we're doing this. So anyway, so I went in, I brought the measuring wheel, and I met the guys, and I said, all right, let's figure out how many laps you're going to have to run to do 13.1 miles. So turned it into a little bit of a learning session, a little bit of math, so they measured it, and it turns out it was 124 laps that they were going to have to do around the yard inside. So anyway, so I can speak, certainly to the process, and I will, but really the bigger picture is, how does it align with our mission? Our mission at Big Sur Marathon Foundation is community fitness. It's supporting healthy lifestyles. It's bringing creative running experiences to the community. We have these two pillar events. We have this amazing, Big Sur International Marathon weekend in April, and then we have the Monterey Bay Half Marathon. But really, those are our fundraisers. So our fundraisers help us to bring our programming to our community here in Monterey County. And, oftentimes we talk about, it's Carmel and Big Sur and the Monterey Peninsula, but our county it's pretty huge. And it has, like 3,700 square miles. And a lot of these people are underserved in the kind of the further outreaches. So if you like Southern County, South Monterey County, and out in Salinas and whatnot, which is where the juvenile hall is. And, in our industry, we always talk about access, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, these are guys that probably haven't had an opportunity to have a coach or to have an experience like this. Like, what can we do? Like this aligns so perfectly with what we're trying to do in our organization, and I think in, bigger picture in our industry is let's bring running to people that might not have an opportunity to have it.
That's awesome. Well, I was going to ask about the logistics, but it sounds like you got out the tape and figured out the measuring of the course. Was it in a field or just an exercise area?
Yeah, so they have kind of like a common area, they call it the yard, inside the walls, and it's just a concrete track. In fact, they named themselves the Concrete Steppers. So it is just a concrete track. I think it's, 9.5 laps-ish to do a mile. And so they spend their time running. They have a gardening program. They have chickens, so they tend to chickens. They learn carpentry. I mean, they have some really fantastic opportunities within the walls there. And, like I said, one of the things they wanted to do was kind of participate in a way that not only were they training, but they were also journaling about it. They were keeping track they all got a journal. They could keep track of their miles, their nutrition. How did they feel before they ran? How did they feel after they ran? And I worked with them to kind of pull together a custom race bib, and a finisher shirt. Like, what do you want it to look like? What are some of the elements? And they wanted the barbed wire that is part of their lives right now, right? They wanted a real picture of what it looked like or where they are right now. They wanted the California bear from our state flag, which I thought was great. So we kind of pulled together and they said, we're naming it the Hall Half. So, a lot of that ownership was on them and sort of the design and how it was going to go. And then, we worked as an organization to support it with volunteers and some operational things as well, supplies, equipment, and whatnot.
Very cool. And so how long did they train for before they stepped onto the track?
Well, formally, they trained for 3 months, give or take 3 months. So Isaiah Garcia, who is the probation aide that I was working with, put together a plan, and he worked with them every day. And they had their training, they had their long run. They, like I said, like they really learned a lot about nutrition and about how they feel, how their legs feel. Even the running shoes. So this was kind of a really kind of cool opportunity to bring them some shoes, like some real training shoes. So they get issued shoes from the state, and they aren't great for running, but they're running in them. And so I thought, well, we have a fantastic partnership with Hoka. I'm going to call them up and see what they can do. And they jumped on it right away. They sent shoes for every one of them. They sent some shirts so we could customize a finisher shirt. Like they were kind of all in. And the guys said, what a huge difference. Like they can't believe how much better their legs feel or their knees and their joints. And so I think it really helped. It really helped.
That's awesome. So give us a little bit of the picture on race day. What were some of the observations for you and how did it go?
Yeah. So on race day, it was funny. I woke up and I didn't sleep great like any other pre-race night, and I thought I was really nervous for them. And I was like, I hope did they get some rest? Are they ready? Are they nervous? Um, and then when we got there, I was worried the volunteers might not show up and, all of the typical things that you worry about, how was the weather going to be? And it was a perfect morning. It was cool. It was a little overcast, but great for running a half. Every volunteer showed up. Of course they did. The guys were really nervous but they were excited. They were excited to, they finally got there. Like, let's make it happen. They had an opportunity to watch 26.2 to Life.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with it, but it's a pretty inspirational movie about a race that was done inside the walls of San Quentin. And when I had talked to Isaiah initially, I that came to mind. I brought it up at the end of our talk, and he said, "No, I've never heard of it." I said, "Wow, you really got to watch it. It's kind of cool." I said it's a very similar idea. So they all had an opportunity to watch it before they ran, and I think kind of gave them that little extra motivation to kind of get through it. But yeah, race morning was super exciting. We set everything up. We made it as official as possible. We had start flags, finish flags. We had like timing system that we used. So our volunteers came in and they actually, we gave them clickers so they could track. We assigned one volunteer to one runner, and so they actually formed pretty fantastic bonds during that experience, because they're cheering them on. Family and friends weren't allowed to come in, so we were the support system. Their their staff and their team also at Monterey County Juvenile Hall came out, and it was amazing. Like the community that we felt, like the sense of community, it was really great. Like these kids, they're in a good place. I think they're on the right track. Everybody deserves a second chance, and if we can help and we can change a life, that's really why we're doing it, right? And it's like for me, it could be a race of 10,000 and it could be a race of 10. I still felt the same excitement and the same, jittery kind of feeling.
That's awesome. Was everybody able to finish?
Yeah, everybody finished. Our two top finishers tied for first place. They ran in together, and they've been training all along and pushing each other. And they ran a 7:17 pace for their very first half marathon. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive. And the 10th finisher, he was the final finisher. He was struggling. Obviously, he had a little cramping going on. Like you could tell he was uncomfortable. And for the last two laps, like crying, like all the guys had finished. They went out and they ran with him so that they could support him. I mean, it was like the sense of camaraderie and brotherhood, and it was really inspirational. I mean, half of us were in tears. He even grabbed the American flag on his way for his last one, and he ran. I mean, it was a big deal. It was really exciting, and other some of the youth that are also there, they were able to come out and cheer them on at the finish. And it didn't matter where they were from, what their background was, what they've lived. Like in that moment, like they were all heroes, and they finished the line. We had a break tape. We actually held it for every single one of them so that they could each experience kind of running through the tape.
Mm.
So that was super fun. And we even did like a formal awards ceremony at the end. And, I had every volunteer that was assigned to their runner, they put on we had medals that we had custom made. And so we even put their name and their finish time on them. So they were able to get that. And also I gave them an opportunity. I said, any one of you, when you're out, if you're still running and you want a chance to run our half marathon, you're ready. You just need to let me know. So they all have my card, and there's one of the finishers, actually the one that tied for first place. He'll be running the Monterey Bay half in November. So we've already set him up with a couple of local coaches that are interested, and some facilities, so he can have an opportunity to continue kind of his running journey.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, we all know that running can change lives, and it just sounds like this was really an opportunity to see that in action.
Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned Hoka. Are there any other sponsors that pitched in that you wanted to shout out a little bit?
Yeah, Hoka's been great. We work with GU Energy Chews, so we had we only needed one aid station, right? You're running in circles, so we had one aid station, and we had just water and some electrolytes, and then we had GU, so we were able to have that for the guys. And then the Monterey Herald is a sponsor, their local paper, but they did a great feature story on it, so kind of promoted it, and we got some donations out of that, and some just raising awareness about the program and what it was able to accomplish. And like I said, if we can change one life, like that's kind of why we're in it. We have a really strong community fitness program here, and this is what we do. Like this is why we're here. This is important stuff.
What happens next? Will you do this again?
Yeah, well, like I said, actually during the race itself, I got an email saying, we're going to give you $1,000 to make sure this happens. So it was something nice to announce at the awards. And I asked them, and I said, who's in it? Who's in it again? And they, every single one of them. And I said, all right, well, next year we need 11. I said, if we can keep adding one more person, two more people, three more people, then that would be great. And then before I left, they had called in the gentleman that runs, there's like a youth program that's affiliated with the department. and so youth services and whatnot. And so they have, he said, I want to bring this to my place as well. Like, what can we do? Let's talk. So I have a meeting set up with them. So I think the ripple effect is going to be super exciting to watch, like not only what does the trajectory, how does it change for these young men, but how are they able to support the people that follow in their footsteps, right? Like, so can we expand it? Can we bring it to other organizations? That's ultimately the goal, because it was a lot of coordination, but it wasn't a heavy lift. It really wasn't, especially when you have two teams working together.
Very cool. Well, anything else at all that you'd like to add about the experience?
I don't know. I think, someone said, well, how can I bring this to my area? How can I do this? Right. And so I've been giving it some thought, because for me, I was lucky. I happened to answer the phone, right? So it just happened organically. So I think in general, networking, right? So if you're in your communities, I always ask, like, what do you need? So I meet with all sorts of people, and just to get to know them and their why, why are you leading this nonprofit? What is it that you want? How can we help? So I think that's a big piece of it. And then, so if you can find someone that has the infrastructure that's kind of already in place, right? And you have someone to be the champion for whatever it is, whether it's, a half marathon, a 10K, a full marathon, you need a little support. Our staff is 3 strong now. So, we can't do programming all over the place, but if we can bring the ideas, bring the support, bring some volunteerism and equipment, supplies, whatever, and help somebody else with their vision, that to me is pretty huge. So, again, it's about just making connections and asking how you can support.
Amazing. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear about this project and can't wait to see what happens with it in the future.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see things kind of keep going forward. So thanks for taking an interest in it. I appreciate that.